to invite our next referent to the stage, who is Dr. Allan Hassaniyan. A big applause for him. Also, he is from UK and made all the way to Bonn. Thank you so much. I would like to introduce him to you. Dr. Allan Hassaniyan is a dedicated lecturer specializing in Middle East studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. He earned his bachelor and master in arts in public administration and international politics, followed by a PhD in Kurdish studies from the Center for Kurdish Studies at the University of Exeter. His doctoral research focused on the 20th century Iranian-Iraqi Kurdish movement, studying their cross-border interaction and subsequent effects on mobilization within the Iranian Kurdish movement. The expertise of Dr. Hassaniyan spans critical historical eras, including the Middle Eastern state and society, the modern history of Iran, politics in Kurdistan, and Iraqi's nation-state building during the Ottoman era. Notably, Hassaniyan's research and publications exemplified by his book Kurdish Politics in Iran, Cross-Border Interactions and Mobilizations since 1947, published by Cambridge University Press in 2021, delved into the intricacies of Kurdish politics and state securitization in Iranian Kurdistan, shedding light on armed conflicts and popular uprisings in the region. Thank you for being here. Big applause again.
Thank you so much for having me. Before I start to give the talk, I would like to give a brief summary because we have a large, Kurdish audience, so they also follow what I'm talking about. Slautan Leo Bakherbian, Zor Spas, Bo Niwandaria. Au basika au Roman de kam ziatir gara hamuman away Kurdiatu la Kurdistan au hat bebajorek dazanet ka خباتی کوردستان بە تایبەت لەم ڕۆژانە گەشتر چ ئاستێک باسی کۆمەلگای مەدەنی بە تایبەتی ڕۆڵی ژن لە شۆڕشی ژینە ئەو کاتە لەگەڵ ئەوانە گرنگی زمان لە خەباتی ئەوڕۆیی ڕۆژهەڵات بە تایبەتی هەروەها ئەوەی کە پێی دەڵێن ئینترسێکشناڵەتی گرنگی خەبات بۆ نەتەوە بێدەوڵەتەکان بە تایبەت نەتەوەیەکی وەکو کورد کە لە چوارچێوەی لە حاڵەتی ڕۆژهەڵاتدا ئێراندا دەژیت چۆن خەباتی کورد لە ڕۆژهەڵات ئەتوانێت گرنگیەکی زۆری هەبێت بۆ دموکراتیزەکردنی ئێران هەروەکو هاوڕێیانش باسییان کرد. لەگەڵەوەش داوای لێبوردنەکەم کە باسەکە بە ئینگلیسی دەکەم لەبەرەوەی چونکە زۆربەی بەژاروانی خۆشەویست ئینگلیسی کوردی زمانن. هەروەها لێرەش پێم خۆشە پیرۆزبایی لە هاوڕێیانی سنتەری لێکۆڵینەوەی تیش بکەم. هەنگاوێکی زۆر گرینگە وەکو مامۆستایان باسیشیان کرد، زۆر گرینگە کە زانست بە زمانی کوردی لە پلاتفۆرمە کوردیەکانەوە بەرهەم بێت و بڵاو بکرێتەوە. پێم وابێ ئەوە یەکێک لە ئەکە گرنگەکانی ئەوڕۆی ئەمەیە کە بە تایبەتی لە دنیایەکدا کە دەوڵەت نەتەوە دەستگای نەتەوەیمان نییە، خۆمان زانست بەرهەم بێنین و بڵاوی بکەینەوە بۆ ئەوەی دنیای دەرەوەش لە ئێمە تێبگات. Dear friend, colleagues, and so firstly I would like to congratulate our friends for the establishment and inaugurance of the TISHK Center for Kurdish Studies. I'm sure that is a very important step and initiative to produce and disseminate knowledge about Kurdistan. I know that actually it has been a group work, mainly effort of a few quite dedicated individuals, including Siyaosh Hamadi, Saro Ardalan, Nasser Muradi, but as I said, it has been a group work, though some have done much more. Thank you very much to them. So I would like to start with something about Rojhelat. Rojhelat is East Kurdistan, or the Iranian Kurdistan. In the literature of the Kurdish nationalism, it is referred to East Kurdistan, even though very disputed. However, from the Kurdish perspective, some of those areas at the market here are like mixed population in terms of people ethnicity, nationality. Like some areas like Urumia is like mixed province of Kurdish and Azeris. However, basically Rojhelat includes 5 and 6 provinces, as I said, quite disputed. And here is actually kind of, if you look at the western part of Iran, somehow it is what we refer to as Rojhelat on the map of Iran. So, okay, great. Here is Jina Amini and how the murder of Jina Amini, the 23 years Kurdish girl Jina from the city Saqqas, has triggered a massive uprising which has been actually affected the entire country, but also the catchphrase of this uprising movement has been echoed around the world as Jinjian Azadi, women life freedom, and how this movement became a platform to express different kind of grievance and deprivation toward the regime. Most importantly, 2022 was a transformative, very important year for the state-society relationship in Iran, but especially in Rojhelat, Kurdistan. And in this case, Kurdistan was at the forefront, meaning it played a very important role. So, in this case, this movement brought to the surface a different kind of trend, especially subaltern nationalism, the nationalism who challenged the state-centric approach to national identity. The interdisciplinarity of this movement is something very unique, which also has been supported and inspired other sections of the Iranian society, other national non-Persian group as well as Persian. So it brought together different sections of the society, especially because of the progressive vision of this movement. So what is important that the post 16 September 2022 and what we have as many uprising across Kurdistan and other part of Iran, especially in the Kurdish case, it is not something happened overnight. It is something with long historical track. For example, what happened to the? Sorry, it was a very important image I wanted to. Okay, luckily it's back. Images here you can see, these are from the 1979-1980, showing the time when the revolution emerged in Iran in 1979. Immediately, a few weeks after the revolution, it was a referendum for the Islamic Republic, Referendum Jumhuriye Islami. However, Kurdistan unanimously boycotted this referendum, and from the early moment of the emergence of this regime, Kurdistan quite loudly said no to this republic. And it is how the relation between Kurds in Iran and the state started. So this pattern has continued for the case until recently. So what we see in this case as I said, it is something that actually, if we're not taking the more than 100 years of the Iranian history, the establishment of nation state, the two Pahlavis, but looking in more contemporary context, we see that the Kurdish state relation with the regime started quite in a very conflictual sense, with the Kurds rejected purely the regime's value and idea of Vilayat al-Faqih, and they promoted their secular and progressive way of life. Again, through these 44 years, the Kurdish society and the movement in Kurdistan has evolved in different directions, however, all aiming the same kind of vision, a sort of self-determination, self-identification of Kurdish identity, Kurdish right, culture, and so on. So in this case, while in the 1980s, we had mainly political parties like KDPI and Komala leading the Kurdish movement. Since the 1990s and in the very early 20th century, we see a sort of diversification of the Kurdish movement. Means the number of actors taking part in this movement in different contexts and through different mechanisms became numerous. So, for example, the emergence of huge number of civil society organization. I'm sure some of you may challenge the idea of civil society in authoritarian context. Yes, it is difficult having civil society like promoting democracy and right in a context like the Islamic Republic, Islamic regime of Iran. However, it is what makes the Kurdish case very unique, because they operated within the authoritarian context of the Islamic Republic. So since the early 21st century especially, we see massive number of cultural institutions, environmental NGOs, and so on, I can say unseen anywhere in Iran and even in the wider region, Middle East. So promoting Kurdish language, Kurdish culture, but also protecting the natural environment in a time which the natural environment and the ecological system of Kurdistan under huge pressure, because as you know, Kurdistan is quite rich by natural resources, including water, forest, and so on. But in a very colonial context, intercolonial context, many of those resources are stolen. The IRGC, the military revolutionary guard of the regime, setting fire to the forest of Kurdistan. We have environmental NGOs, despite all challenges and difficulties, are protecting the natural environment of Kurdistan. And as I said, it is quite unique because like every city of Rojhelat, at least one or two NGOs, environmental NGOs, are operating and promoting protection of a natural environment. Here is worth to mention the role of Kurdish women. For those of you who have been in the, especially post-revolutionary 1979 revolution, you know that women from the early almost week of the revolution took actively part in the Kurdish movement. However, what is very unique in this case is we see the role of women not just as someone participating, but literally leading the movement, leading their cause, but also highlighting the suffering of the Kurdish nation. So they have, and they actually carry a very major case because the gender aspect of their life they are highlighting. They are facing different kind of discrimination from the women of the center, okay? Because as one of the audiences mentioned here, the suffering of women based on their geography, their ethnicity, their society, are different from each other. The suffering of Kurdish women in Rojhelat is definitely very different from the suffering of women in the center. So, patriarchal system, and more importantly as well, the national exclusion. Women like Zainab Jalalian, Zara Mohammadi, Mujgan Kawasi, and many others, they actually became the face of the movement. A very challenging, difficult movement, not just in an authoritarian context of the Islamic Republic, but also somehow in a conservative, patriotic society to accept different part of Rojhelat. So they are solving a very important kind of task. So in this movement, which women as well as men, as actors of civil society, have taken part, the Kurdish language has played a very important role. Actually, it is in the epicenter of this movement. How this language policy of the state has been challenged. And similar to environmental NGOs, we see massive number of cultural institutions around different parts of Rojhelat educating or teaching voluntarily, especially kids at school age, Kurdish. So it sounds quite provocative to the regime, and it's the reason when we see that Kurdish activists like Zara Mohammadi has been arrested and been charged for like 11 years sentenced like 10 years prison, and then being in jail almost a year and released suddenly. But the threat is always there for them. And then quite recently, we have seen another activist from the same organization, Nojin, as Zara Mohammadi, was a lead member or board member of this organization, Nojin, with Seysewan Ibrahimi, which has been sent to the jail on 30 December. However, this activism doesn't take just within the geography of Rojhelat. We see quite dedicated person, Mujgan Kawasi. Actually, she is a woman from a generation of Kurds that centuries ago have been sent to exile in the northern part of Iran. So Mujgan Kawasi has recently been called by the intelligence to the intelligence office in her region and been put in prison. And she is a cultural and linguistic activist similar to like Zara Mohammadi. However, she is kind of promoting Kurdish culture and identity in a very remote and also isolated kind of region far from Kurdistan. But she has been quite loud in her critique to the regime and the regime's policy toward the Kurds, but also regime's generally brutality toward kind of any democratic seeking activities. Quite a recent event we all, especially those following with the news in Kurdistan, is Roya Hashmati, which recently she's been arrested for not adhering to the Islamic hijab. So Roya, she's also a Kurdish activist living in Tehran. She was whipped 74 times lashed because she refused to wear the hijab. And interestingly, when she was asked at the court to, warn that she needs to have her hijab, she answered. because the judge told her that you have to follow the rule. And then she said, let the law do its job and we will continue our resistance. And it is how actually women in different ways are challenging the autocratic Persian Shiite regime in Tehran. I mentioned the environmental NGOs. Here are just a few examples of Kurdish environmental NGOs operating in different cities and parts of Kurdistan. Most well-known of those are the Shia organization. Shia is mountain in Kurdish, in the city of Mariwan. Very proactive, doing different activities apart from their environmental one, but also educating people in environmental friendly behavior, promoting Kurdish language. When very often we have fire, somehow in many cases actually set by the IRGC, the Shia has created a group of volunteers to put off this fire, and they have done actually through the massive wildfire last summer. When I say the uniqueness of civil society and civil society activism in Rojhelat is that during the period when Jina's uprising started, so several hundred people across Iran, in Rojhelat, in Sistan and Baluchistan have been killed. In Kurdistan, the cemetery, the Shila, which is the 40 days after the death, has been transferred to a kind of special platform of resistance. When family, relative, parents, brother, sister of the victim gathered at the cemetery, actually dancing, chanting, but also having kind of political speeches to not discourage sending your girl and daughter to the street, actually say, we have to suffer before we are free. So we have several hundred examples of these manifests, because for every death, especially parents came and gave a speech and called the regime to be a fascist. Like, the regime is a fascist in Tehran, however, the regime is the occupier and a colonizer in Kurdistan. I'm sure many of us know that the regimes occupying Kurdistan, they always have been occupier, colonizer. But for the civil society, talking about openly, it is a new trend. And then we see men and women side by side took part of these activities. It has become a turning point. I think a turning point that has, while the Kurdish regime relation never been good, but for the Kurds, for generation and generation, there would be no good relation between Kurds and the state, because of the way people mobilized and resisted, and the way the regime used violence in Kurdistan especially. But it's also worth to mention, in regions like Sistan and Baluchistan, the regime killed hundreds in a day, like using helicopter. In Juanro, a city of Rojhelat, the regime used caliber 50, heavy machine gun, shooting at demonstrators and killing dozens of peaceful protesters. Here are another images. So in Kurdistan, the funeral and the chila, as I said, for protesters killed by the regime turned into special political gathering with parents, children and relatives of the lost ones gave political speech, questioning the regime's legitimacy and its presence in Kurdistan openly. The mourning was replaced by outrage, dancing, and parents and relatives were expressing pride of their loved ones who died for the freedom of Kurdistan and the Kurdish people. However, the consequences have been high because Kurdistan has suffered massively. Several hundred people have been killed. Kurdistan has been turned to a battlefield like the one we had in the 1980s when Khomeini declared jihad against the Kurds. Jihad is an Islamic decree. Usually, Muslim leaders are using this to encourage the Muslim community to fight against non-Muslims. And this decree was used against Kurds. And that's why, as Dr. Saeed Shams mentioned, we had like 50,000 in the 80 casualties in Kurdistan because Islamic rule, Islamic decrees was used against. And actually we had a similar condition in Kurdistan during Jina's revolution and the preceding time. So Kurdistan, compared to other parts of Iran, also observed massive general strike. In the 3-4 months intensive period after the Jina's revolution, Kurdistan observed at least 7 general strike where all school, markets and everywhere were closed. And it is quite difficult for a region which is already quite suffering from economic difficulties, but they managed because they believed in it, to question the regime, to challenge the regime's approach in Kurdistan. But we have had also a short moment of solidarity among the Persian, the non-Persian, different national group across the country. But it was a short one, and probably many people will blame this non-existence of solidarity, especially supporting regions like Kurdistan and Sistan and Baluchistan to have a persistent revolution and regime change. I mentioned here also the Kurdish movement is not just challenging the regime's idea and ideology, the vilayat al-faqih, the rule of religion and sharia, but the whole concept of nationality, Iranian national identity. As you know, Iran is a diverse, multinational country. The Persian, Kurdish, Azeri, Arab, also many religions, Muslims, Zoroastrians, Baha'i, and so on. But the whole system is dominated and is representing, and it is given for a century privilege to one section. So the idea of development, what is development? What and how much should be the share of regions like Kurdistan of development? And how regime's policy of development, let's say building dams, how much would this contribute to the Kurdish region, like to Khuzestan, when they're taking the water from this region? These all have been questioned and is questioning every day, questioned by like different section of the society. So here you see in this post it says, Kurdistan's share of development is death. Means that development, wealth, there is nothing for us. It's just you take and the ruin is left for us. And then another aspect is the Jiyan Azadi. But what is important in this case, there is something called the importance of subaltern peripheral nationalism. And Kurd as a subaltern excluded national group and their movement because of their vision, secularism, federalism, the importance of the role of women, equality, the requirement for the change of the constitution, but also access to decision making. These are open claims of the Kurds, both claims of the exile movement, which like political parties, KDPI, Komala, Chabad, Pajab, and so on, but also the civil society, even though the price is quite high, but there is also a persistent claim for change. And it is what make Kurdistan quite unique, and it is how we hope that a persistent movement can contribute to democratization, because unlike many kind of part of Iran, especially the center, the Persian, which those opposing the regime is that the regime changed. In Kurdistan, the regime change is not satisfying the Kurdish desire, but a structural change, because it doesn't matter who's in power. We have seen the Pahlavi, we have seen the Islamic Republic, in a very undemocratic, in a society like the Iranian one that never experienced democracy. We don't know what is expecting even after a regime change. So what Kurd is questioning especially is the structure of the state, the notion of identity. Okay? Thank you so much.